Now we will discuss building cyber resilience in smart cities. Urban tech leaders share their strategies. And ladies and gentlemen, and for that I will invite to the stage Hugo Silva, principal at P Labs, Fraz Anjum, head of IT infrastructure and service delivery at Serco Canada, Mimi Eelman, strategy energy transition at City of Amsterdam, and our panel discussion moderator, Joe Appleton, editorial director and media relations at B Smart Cities. Please give them a warm welcome. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, panelists, for joining us and audience for staying to watch. My name is Joe Appleton. I'm the editorial director at Be Smart City, which is the world's largest online marketplace or meeting network for smart city professionals. As we've already seen today, we've had a lot of panel discussions that have touched on data. They've touched on cybersecurity. We've had mentions of AI, big data and machine learning. All of these things present a challenge, and while there's a lot of doom talk, Armageddons, hopefully that's not the case. But bad actors can be involved, and cyber resilience is something we really need to work on and understand better. So I would like to invite my panelists to reintroduce themselves and explain their role in the context of cyber resilience. Who would like to start? Hugo.
Happy to go first. My name is Hugo Silva. I'm a principal at a venture capital fund based out of London. And the reason why I think I'm sitting here is because in a previous life, I used to focus quite a bit in cybersecurity and investing in companies within the cybersecurity realm. Everything from day zero attacks to making sure that, because I was at a utility company, that the grid remained active. And at the time while I was doing there was a massive attack in Ukraine within their network grids, and it was a very, very famous attack called Stuxnet that basically just made all the utilities in the world reevaluate how they were looking at cybersecurity. And that's something that we're thinking about within smart cities. What is that one attack that's going to come that is going to make people reevaluate their cybersecurity strategy? Because what we see is that for many, many companies out there, when they're thinking about cybersecurity, it's all about just being good enough. No one goes for best in class. So no one worries about that 1% event that might just completely destroy your entire network. So have quite a bit of experience on that, and happy to be here.
Okay, Mimi.
My name is Mimi Eelman. I work for the City of Amsterdam as a director of energy transition, and I think daily about to what extent is our energy infrastructure resilient. And I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but it's definitely at the core of our functioning of our city.
Okay, thank you very much. And Fraz, would you like to? You can take mine if you like. Okay.
Morning, everyone. My name is Fraz Anjum. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I'm the head of IT infrastructure and service delivery. Our company provides the major service delivery for the public sector in Canada. And one of the main operations I run is the drive test centers in the province of Ontario. Again, the largest province in Ontario. We have around 14 million people there, 52 major cities, and we run the drive test centers there. We have around 100 centers in Ontario, and a part of my role is to ensure that the systems that we run are safe, secure, and we ensure that that we can protect our system from cybersecurity, from cyber incidents, and should an incident occur, how soon can we react and recover and restore the systems?
Okay, thank you very much. So Mimi, I would like to ask you a question since you're here to represent government. It's a basic question, but how would you define a smart city, and why is resilience important?
That's a very interesting question. Basically, it comes down to what extent are you capable of living comfortably in a city using any kind of technology that is helping you to make your life more comfortable, and that technology is available at a large scale. It's more a matter of to what extent is it being used to enhance your living conditions. And your second question was, why is resilience?
Why is resilience important?
Yeah, why is resilience important? Basically because most of the people living in cities, it's becoming more and more of them, they want to keep on living in cities. So therefore, it's not a matter of moving away, but dealing with the challenges that are coming up ahead. And as a city, you want to be capable of adapting or reacting to whatever crisis is going to hit you, whether it's going to be flooding, whether it's going to be a power cut or a hacking of your systems, a drop down of your energy infrastructure or other vital infrastructure that's going to hit you. You still like to be up and running as soon as possible again. And there's going to be a lot of crises coming ahead, hitting cities large scale the coming decades. That's inevitable.
Inevitable.
Thank you.
No problem. So, Hugo, I would like to ask you to give us a case study about cyber resilience that you've encountered. So, has there been some kind of significant attack you can talk us through, and how you prepared for it, or how you reacted to it?
Yes, so what we do is slightly different in that regard, because what we do is we invest in companies that hopefully help solve some of these issues. The one attack that I was talking about was something that happened in Ukraine back in 2015, where hackers were able to hack into a power plant, and all the information that people were seeing in their dashboard were still holding true, but they were able to change the actual valves that were in that power plant and turn it down. So it caused a massive blackout. So on the back of that, there was a lot of effort that was put into finding technologies that would help you identify attacks like those. We ended up, back in my previous fund, ended up investing in a company that was doing exactly that. So they were actually building a software that would identify when the physical world was not matching the online world, right? So they were able to bridge the gap between the two and make sure to identify attacks even before they happened, right? So what we call day zero attacks. Within the context of smart cities, we're seeing a huge increase in interest in quantum technologies. So specifically because of IoT. These days, IoT represents everything from your smart speakers all the way down to baby monitors that are connected. So and these are typically quite easy to hack. Not all of them, but quite easy. And for example, us in the UK, we're launching the PSTI Act in April next year, just to make sure that every consumer product that can be connected will have their security standards upgraded. So there's been a lot of effort within the quantum community to start developing new cryptography tools to make sure that it's harder for these devices to hack. We're looking into that space, but it's something that takes a really, really long time to develop. The first company I looked into in this space was around 2018, and I still think they're not commercializing yet because it takes a long time to develop technologies like this.
Okay, thank you very much. It was interesting that you mentioned the sort of power grid cyber attack, and you used the word blackout. A few years ago, there was a book called Blackout, which was recently turned into a TV series, where a power grid was essentially hacked. And I would like to go back to Mimi as an energy professional. Do you have any proactive measures to stop this from happening in the Netherlands that you can talk about?
That I can talk about. That's a very good addition to it. Basically, I'd like to just elaborate a bit on Hugo's comments. You can secure or invest in securing your system as far as you can go and endlessly, but it all boils down to the human behavior and the human aspect. And we are all getting more and more vulnerable because we're using data and IoT in our day-to-day lives. And I realized it was not the power system that was going down, but it was the banking system in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam. Basically, none of us are using cash money anymore. And all of a sudden, it was a full day that the banking system went down in the supermarkets, and it already started a panic. People were really shopping up and collecting goods because they started realizing, okay, I have no cash money in the house. So within a matter of hours, you have an anarchy in your state. Now, there's lots of things done to secure the system and to make sure it keeps on operating. But I think you should really focus much more on what is your time to restart the system or make it back up to functioning, and in what kind of units or compartments can you protect your areas from stopping a massive blackout and just keeping it localized to certain compartments, instead of investing much further into securing the virtual side of things, because there is definitely an end to it, and people are not going to use it because they easily make it accessible to anyone. So there's a lot you can do, and that is being done, but in the end, focus also on what time do you need in order to restart your system.
Would you like to add?
A great point here that's being made is that one of the massive problems with cybersecurity is that it all boils down to human error, and we think that, especially if you've been in the industry, you think phishing is a thing of the past, but there's 3.4 billion emails sent every day that are just spam, just trying to trick people into giving information. That information can be anything from, I want to know your credit card information, all the way down to, hey, it's the CEO, I want you to do this for me. Can you reply to this email? And a lot of them are becoming very credible. I received so many phishing emails from Barclays, and it just looks like Barclays. So it's still, I think, I read a stat the other day, still 60% of all attacks are phishing, which just sounds ridiculous because we now know what spam is, but it's still the preferred method of attack is still phishing because it relies on human error.
That's very interesting. I didn't know phishing was still such a big thing in this day and age. But Mimi, it was very interesting that you mentioned not just being proactive with cybersecurity, it's how long does it take to restructure and recover after an attack. Now, Fraz, we discussed something and a very good example of this over coffee yesterday. Would you like to tell us about that?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we operate the drive test centers in the province of Ontario, and when the COVID happened, we shut down the service for 6 months. And when we reopened, there was a huge backlog of the road test. There were 1 million people in the line to get the road test done. And we could not do all of them, all together. So definitely people were trying to book as soon as possible. And since the booking is done through the website, we were not able to give the equal opportunity to everybody because there was a gray market operating that was kind of booking the test for people. So this gray market, around $2 million a month, were charging a premium of $100, trying to book on the behalf of the applicant. Now, the Canadian laws doesn't stop it because they take the consent from the applicant that, yes, we're booking the test on their behalf. And these sort of setup companies will hit our system hard, try to book a slot. And then it was kind of difficult for us to differentiate between a genuine applicant trying to book a road test for themselves or a company or their systems trying to automate, run scripts and book it. Again, definitely there are a lot of technologies, to stop it, but it was difficult era for us to put in place technologies that could differentiate between the genuine persons and the bad actors. And how do we stop them at the perimeter? So again, our first goal was to first quickly identify, and recover, and then restore it. And definitely we had all sort of different failover systems in place. Should the incident occurred, in a vast majority, then how do we operate in a run the business continuity in a fashion that we can still operate? See, take the road test, still on papers, for example. I mean, we take the road test on a tablet this time. So if you go for a road test, the driver examiner who's sitting with you actually has a tablet, and he or she scores the score on the tablet, which is connected fully on the using the private API and backhauling on LTE to our systems. How do we ensure that all those systems stay secure? These bad actors who are trying to get into the system through the website or whatever mechanism, we can keep them out. So this was a challenge, and we were able to secure the systems very quickly.
Okay, so you had a backlog of 1 million driving tests, basically. And what I would like to know is, how did you fix this problem? Because we always, today, talking about data, we talk about AI and we mention the problems with it. Are there any solutions where AI or IoT has managed to protect or fix a problem?
Yes, I mean, there are many technologies out there. For example, in this case, all of these actors were using our website to get into the website and hit the system hard in different scripts. So what we had to do is to stop them right at the perimeter. We did have the CDN, the content delivery networks. In addition, we applied sort of bot technology where we could differentiate between the bots and the real humans. We kind of install a plugin on their browsers when an applicant is trying to access our website. We'll drop a plugin on the browser that will kind of collect the data, telemetry data from their systems to see on the clicks and the input from the keyboard that if it's coming as a human or is some automated script running. So that's how kind of differentiated between them and stopped it right at the perimeter. Okay,
I'd like to open this question to everyone. Hugo, you have the mic, so
yes, sure.
Feel free to jump in.
I mean, typically what we see with our companies is that one of the main or bringing it back to the real estate world, one of the main challenges that we've seen is not necessarily the big companies, but rather within real estate and construction having massive supply chains, right? That means that you will be working with general contractors that may have hundreds or, well, tens of thousands of employees, all the way down to smaller subcontractors that have a couple of dozen of people. There was a stat saying in 2021 about 2/3 of all attacks within real estate came through the supply chain, because that's the way that hackers found a way to, or that's how hackers found a way to get to those big companies. So we've seen quite a few companies out there that are trying to basically create a scorecard of your entire supply chain. It doesn't necessarily solve the problem per se, but it gives the larger companies that need this information, gives them an understanding of how secure is my supply chain and where do I need to act, right? Because the main issue that we see, especially within the supply chain space, is that they have no idea. They just don't have, they'll do whatever they can to secure their own systems, but they don't have an idea what other people are doing. It's kind of similar to, and we were talking about it, they were talking about it in the previous panel and others, but it's kind of similar of how you look at Scope 3 emissions and how you're looking at your supply chain from a cybersecurity Scope 3 sense. You're only as secure as your supply chain is. So we're seeing quite a few companies that are addressing that. I still haven't found the one that I would like to invest in. I still think that we're missing a little bit more automation. I think AI will definitely help with that, because currently it's still a bit too manual. There are some solutions trying to solve it, but currently it's still, you will send a questionnaire to your supply chain, they will fill it out if they can, but they also get these requests from a multitude of customers that they have that require this. So this is still something that we're looking for. We haven't actually found anyone that has cracked it 100%, but here's to hoping.
Okay, and Mimi, are you actively using any AI or machine learning techniques to protect your city?
Protect is an interesting word. No, we're using AI to actually achieve our goals. On energy saving, for example, there's many examples also here on how you can actively use AI to reduce your energy consumption in buildings and in individual homes. And we're looking towards the next level of scaling, steering the behavior, changing the behavior of our citizens. So jumping from the level of individual buildings and their users in it towards steering the behavior of citizens as a whole. And there it comes down to what extent are people actually trusting the AI system, what it can do for them, and to what extent are you breaching your GDPR requirements as a city and actually using AI as an active steering mechanism in order to achieve your goals. So that's where the real value of AI is coming through, and also the dilemmas. What do you do with AI and where do you stop it in light of security, for example, because it's simply safer to not use all that data on such a scale in case of a hack or an external breach.
Okay, so with that in mind, when you're talking about the ethical concerns with using AI or having access to data, have there been any game-changing technologies that are being deployed to try and protect data of the citizen more? Oh, this is a question to anyone who wants to answer it.
I mean, I can give a couple of examples that we've seen. There were quite a few corporates recently that have decided not to let their employees use ChatGPT precisely for what we're talking about, because due to human error, you might end up uploading the wrong type of documents to what is in theory a secure LLM. But people will still commit those mistakes. What we're starting to see a trend of companies that are building what we call AI wrappers or layers of products on top of these large language models, focusing on privacy. There's multiple ways to do it. Some of them is the data never leaves the premise. It just stays in the server, and it means that you don't necessarily train the LLM that much. But we've seen some really smart bits of technology. The company that we're currently speaking to, actually based here out of Poland, they found a way to mask the attributes that they think are quite sensitive, still interact with these large language models, and still give you answers that are relevant without ever disclosing sensitive information. So there's definitely a push for that. Even OpenAI is saying that they are now focusing on privacy. So there's definitely a push for it. I haven't seen anyone that has cracked it 100%.
Okay, I'd like to move away from AI for the moment, unless Mimi, you have something to add?
Well, I was thinking about every now and again, we're still focusing on protecting and securing data, and I think you can't keep that up. The world is simply changing. We're moving into different dimensions. I mean, generations, my kids are used to acting in at least 3 different worlds. The real world, the actual world, I'm sitting here, I'm seeing you, the virtual, digital world, and they're using games, and they're interacting on all different environments. So it's there to stay, and you can't protect it or close it off. So open it up, make it as broad as possible, and interconnect those different realities. Yeah, it's going to be much more than that. So the whole world is going to be a more interesting place, actually. Let's use it.
Absolutely. Well, with that in mind, like I said, if we can move away from AI and actually go back to the physical world again, cyber resilience doesn't just mean cyber security. It can also mean keeping services online in crisis situations. It can also make sure that buildings remain functional. Perhaps in a flood, for example, if you have an IoT building or a smart building, how can that maintain and function in a flood? I'm talking about floods, so it only makes sense to talk to our Netherlands representative.
Thank you. No, it's actually a real issue or a real challenge for the city of Amsterdam, is how we're going to adapt to climate change. And one of the strategies that we're looking into is, of course, the risk of flooding or of heavy rainfall. What kind of buildings in the common built environment can still function under these circumstances? What kind of adaptations, mitigation measures should we have in place? And what type of buildings can simply keep on functioning or can relatively short restart up after a crisis could hit? So you're thinking about changing your infrastructural basis from very much the cables are being laid into the ground towards autonomous skyscrapers that actually can function on themselves, with the rooftops filled with a critical energy infrastructure, setting up right at the spot the emergency response internet connections, making it possible to actually starting up your whole digital infrastructure and your economy so that the society can function again as a whole. And we're incorporating that in our strategy at the moment. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fraz, with that in mind, we did talk about your situation with the driving test. Do you have any more examples where perhaps physical infrastructure and cyber resilience cross over?
For sure. In our case, I think the most important thing, again, back to cyber resilience, is to having that right business continuity plan. So should an incident occur, how do we quickly react? And how can we ensure that, for example, if we're operating on such large scale, how can we protect each smaller entity? How do we protect them? For example, if we're closing down the network to protect the system, how can the site still operate individually and still provide the key critical service to the citizens? So that's the main thing. And so in that case, we always have sort of a failover plans. For example, if we have a technology like multi-factor authentication, it's not set to fail open, which means if your network goes down, it doesn't open up by default. You have then another second layer of mechanism that still check the multi-factor to ensure that that's not opening a door for bad actors. And then, again, if it goes further down, then we have other physical mechanism to still run the road test, be it on paper or something. So you have different layers of, plans. So it's based on risk management, and again, to ensure that we can still run the businesses in a fashion, should an incident occur. And while we restore, we still keep providing the critical services.
Okay, thank you. It was interesting that you mentioned the citizen as the final end user and stakeholder. Are there any kind of ways that citizens can actively help with cyber resilience? Are there any programs in place or strategies? Hugo, you have a smile on your face.
Well, like I mentioned before, most of these initiatives are typically government mandated. So the one that I mentioned is the PSTI Act that's coming out in the UK in April 24. Like I mentioned, all consumer goods will need to have a certain layer of data privacy, but it's like in many instances, it's something that needs to be mandated by someone else. I think most consumers are not necessarily interested in cybersecurity, particularly in their personal lives. Most of them are not within a business sense, let alone their personal lives. So there needs to be action from cities, from governments, from local authorities in order to push us in that direction. Because, like I said, the main problem with cybersecurity in its adoption is that not a lot of people will go for state-of-the-art. Most of them will go with it's good enough. And therefore, if businesses are thinking like that, why would the rest of us not think like that? But I am not the governmental expert.
It's actually, I'm triggering on your thoughts, because one of the things that's really going to help cybersecurity or resilient cities is actually investing in the community. So it's really the soft skills, community building, ensuring that neighbors know each other, that they know where to find each other, that not everyone is just acting in the digital world or the urban life, but you actually know who your neighbor is and you can come to them for rescue or help or assistance in case of any kind of crisis. And that is something the government should really do. Not apart from the legal legislative framework, it's really supporting the communities in order to know your neighbors and help and support each other. And in that case, be prepared as a city to become more resilient to what's coming ahead.
That's very interesting.
We're going to need the people. And all the cyber technologies that are out there are needed there and are going to be used in order to help us live more comfortably. And that starts with knowing your neighbor.
Exactly. This is in a previous panel, not the ESG one, the one before. There was a mention of in Poznan a strategy where seniors could go and actively learn how to use computers, and high school students would be able to teach them, and that's like a fantastic initiative. So would you agree that that is something that is a part of cyber resilience?
Yes, absolutely. I think if mobilizing the trust between people, and especially in cities where the scores on loneliness are skyrocketing, people feel lost in the different worlds or the different virtual and real life worlds, and also the skill of humanity that's overwhelming in cities. People need to find each other again, and that's really going to help us to act in a resilient world. Yeah.
I'd like to add that, taking on the word trust, I think that's the main thing. How do we build that trust in the end user mind that, yes, we say that smart cities are more safer, but how does the end user build up the trust and give that kind of personal information out there, to build those cyber smart cities? We know that for a smarter city, we used to use technologies like sensors and things like that, but how do we, and again, to build that kind of a bigger infrastructure, we have to use people and their sensors, right? So how do we ensure that people have that sort of trust built up so that they can give the access to all sort of sensors they have, so we can start collecting the data towards a better connected community.
Perfect. I'm just being conscious of time because we would like to leave some space for Q&A. So I'd like to sort of bring it to a close with a question like this. As urban tech leaders, what's one piece of advice that you would give to cities embarking on the smart city journey?
Okay, invest in your community and your people, and use IoT, whatever makes you live your life more comfortable. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, it sounds boring, but invest in education. Like mentioned before, phishing is still one of the main routes of attack that hackers use because it relies on human error. Educate people more, going back to the communities. If your communities see the effort that you're putting into them, and you're trying to educate them and help them prevent certain attacks from happening, I think that's a good way forward. Okay,
and Fraz?
Similar to me, I think it's more collaborate with the community, and rather going top down, I think should come from the bottom, engage yourself on grassroots level, create awareness that what exactly it means when we're trying to deploy the technologies, and then have the right risk management plan in place.
Okay, so we have community, education, and I suppose trust as the main pillars. So I'd like to open the floor to questions, if we have any. Well, it doesn't look like we have any. Would you like to ask questions to each other? No? Oh, sure, Jason. Hold on a second. Somebody give this man a microphone.
Yeah. I think the question is how important it is to have a CISO. Is that the question for a city?
Yeah, absolutely. Or just other centralized resources to own and drive cyber.
Yeah. I mean, the CISO of our company, he has a methodology. He says the most secure system is the one that shut down. So shut down everything. I think, to me, to protect the system, we have to look at making things secure by default or secure by design. That's how we can, get that sort of trust and build, deploy the IoTs that's secure by design, and kind of build that trust. But as to your point, CISO is the person who actually lead the whole cybersecurity.
Any other answers to that?
Okay. The question is, what systems should you have in place as a city to censor them? Is that right? The essential cyber infrastructure for cities. Well, basically, you can cyber infrastructure, or you can make cyber your infrastructure cyber in all cases. I would definitely recommend your energy infrastructure, your sewage system, your whole watering system to make it work more smarter, and then to protect it. And the cybersecurity part of it is compartmentalize it and make sure that you actually are able to start up as soon as you can, within minutes or hours, preventing anarchy to start.
Hugo, anything to add?
Just to add here again, I mean, I just want to give this example as we normally use the analogy of digital twins. So if you have this physical security managing the physical part of things, we need to have the digital security, equally a digital twin of physical security to manage the environment. So unless we don't have that sort of mindset, we cannot secure the system properly.
Okay, any more questions? No? Well, in that case, I would like to thank my panel and thank you all for listening.